Coming up down the Waine Train, we have our second youth intake of the save, and also we probably need wins against Aston Villa and more importantly Newcastle, otherwise the train might have left the station on our hopes of European football for next season. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 19 of the Waine Train here on Sean Does FM. I hope you are doing well and coming up today with Plymouth Argyle. As you can see, our second youth intake of the save, and off the back of that we take on Aston Villa right up near the top at the moment of the Premier League table, albeit not quite in a title fight. And then off the back of that, one of the teams currently on the verge of a European qualifying spot in Newcastle United will play that one at St James's Park. So if you're looking forward to that coming up in today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But first up today, off the back of yesterday's episode, we have played a few games, but if you missed that one yesterday, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. But before we recap our form off the back of that, we'll get through this youth intake as it did happen just a little while ago. It was predicted to be a 5-star intake, and to be fair, it's actually a pretty good one compared to most that do have that preview on Football Manager. It's 4.5 stars, and we have got one very good promising player coming through here apparently at Plymouth Argyle. Of course, it's a goalkeeper off the back of those issues that we did have coming into this week of the series in Sammy Ferrer. It's a wonderful name, and he does have 5 stars potential, albeit only 4 of those are gold, but 1 star currently already is 16 determination, so he could end up being quite a good homegrown goalkeeper for us here at Plymouth Argyle. That potential is higher than our other homegrown goalkeeper at the moment, our first choice one for the rest of this season, in Mike Cooper. So Sammy Ferret, certainly someone we will pick up from this year's youth intake. He does look like a star pupil and someone who could prove very useful for us once we do get to Europe with stuff like European registration. That could be quite useful having him as a homegrown club and nation player, albeit don't know if he'll actually get to 21 by the time that we do finish this save, so it might be a case of a player who doesn't need to be registered, but certainly someone with a ton of potential. And off the back of that, down a bit further, the top talents aren't that bad either. We probably won't go down any further than this, because I don't think we need to show you guys the ones with 3-star potential, considering this is quite a good youth intake this year, but 4.5-star potential for Joel McCoy, who is a ball-winning midfielder. Of course, that is a role we have been using with our systems here at Plymouth Argyle, so he could also be quite useful with that potential. He's got some decent attributes for only 16 years old, so another good one for us there in this year's youth intake. A couple with 4-star potential in Byron Munro. He will probably end up being trained as a defensive midfielder as well, just not too sure if he'll be better yet as a deep line playmaker or a ball-winning midfielder, considering we don't really use an out-and-out central midfielder with the 4-2-3-1 we're currently using here at Plymouth Argyle. But he's a decent prospect, as is Herbie Honor, who is a striker and apparently best as a pressing forward, so the same as the Waine Train's currently doing for us here at the Pilgrims. A couple of good fits for us there in terms of what the preview says is their best role in the team, and also someone with 3.5-star potential, a centre-back in Leighton. And yes, quite a good youth intake for us here this year at Plymouth Argyle. Certainly the best one we've had so far in the save, and to be fair, the best one I've had on FM for a long time. Some players with quite high potential who might just work their way around the first team squad come the latter stages of this save. But it is time to catch you guys up on our form off the back of yesterday's episode, in which we did pick up that 2-0 win over Sheffield United and also that 2-2 draw at Nottingham Forest, having just gone to a vertical tiki-taka off the back of that loss to Bournemouth. Still a pretty good chance of going down to the Championship at the end of this season, but we've played 1 month's worth of games off the back of that. We did pick up a win in our next one over a Brighton team who are really struggling now. Rafael Mamas got a late red card in this game, which did make things a little bit interesting, but thankfully, right before halftime, Morgan Whittaker, he got on the score sheet, and then just shy of the hour mark, Tony Springer off the bench, he picked up a goal. So thankfully, that red card didn't prove too costly. As you can see, a pretty comprehensive performance there. Lots of shots on target compared to what Brighton did put out, which was quite nice considering they've given us a pretty hard game last couple of times that we have played them. But at the moment, they are struggling, and thankfully, we pick up 3 points there against a team who are just outside of the relegation zone. An interesting place there for Brighton off the back of Roberto De Zerbi, leaving them for Tottenham Hotspur. But off the back of that, things have just gone a little bit pear-shaped. First up, we did go to Anfield to take on Liverpool. Of course, we beat Liverpool 6-1 at home park earlier this season. It was with a gegenpress. I did start this game off with that gegenpress, but Liverpool were looking pretty threatening in the first 10 or so minutes of this game, so we went back to the vertical tiki-taka, which had been working okay since we switched to off the back of that Bournemouth game, but unfortunately didn't make much difference. Liverpool way too good for us here, with a first half goal to Diogo Jota and a late one to Luis Diaz. Unfortunately, both those goals coming not too long before the whistle blew in either half, but unfortunately Liverpool pick up there a pretty well-deserved 2-0 win. We did very little in attack in that game. At the moment, just feels like the vertical tiki-taka not doing quite so well away from home. And then a really frustrating result here as we took on a Tottenham team who under De Zerbi are starting to make their way back up the table. Actually played pretty well in this game, but unfortunately conceded really early through Almiron. We got one back with 15 minutes left. Good Johnson came off the bench and put one away, and I thought we would have a good chance here to go on and pick up a win, but unfortunately with about 5 minutes left, Soonzip Bell puts one away and we suffer a defeat. And this was a game where you were well and truly getting on the front foot and late, as you can tell by that XG match story. So that was a frustrating result, especially as it was at home park. And off the back of that, a very to and fro game. We would come from behind twice to pick up a draw against Wayne Rooney's West Ham. Morgan Whittaker cancelled out an early strike from Namaso just before half-time, and right off the back of a Nacho putting West Ham back in front. Facundo Farias got things back to being level yet again. We didn't perform as well in this game as we were in those home games. So that, as I said, has been a bit of a concern with the vertical tiki-taka so far. Because of that, still making some adjustments to that tactic, but a point away from home, not too bad considering what had come before that. So some mixed results off the back of yesterday's episode. As you can see, doing pretty well at home, but just struggling away. But what it does mean is we now really need to pick up some points if we want any chance of making Europe next season. We are now 7 points behind Manchester United in that 7th spot, but already with Conference League football, because they did beat Brighton in the Carabao Cup final. 4 points further clear to Newcastle, albeit Man United do have 2 games in hand on them. So hopefully we can pick up some points in today's episode. Otherwise, a mid-table finish is pretty much guaranteed. And to be fair, we could even slip down as low as 14th, because not many points separating the teams in between 8th and 14th on the table at the moment. The one bit of good news is that Bournemouth are now 18 points behind us. They've only got 5 games left in the season. They can't catch us, so we're officially safe in the Premier League for next season. But our second half of the season here at Plymouth Argyle has been really poor ever since those goalkeeping injuries at the start of the week that did turn our form completely upside down and kind of ruin the gegenpress for some strange reason. But hopefully today we can sort out our tactics, because that could be a bit iffy going into next season. If we don't do that, could make things interesting in the pre-season, trying to figure out how we should play going into our second season in the Premier League. But hopefully we can sort that out before the end of the season at the very least, and maybe just sneak a spot in Europe for next season as well, and also hopefully get a decent transfer budget, which we can reveal to you guys at some stage in the end of season episode, which will be coming up tomorrow. But first up today, we are taking on Aston Villa, not quite in the top 4 at this stage, actually just trying to cling on now to a European place. But these guys have been very good so far this season, obviously being up in 5th. They did beat us in the first half of the season. That one, though, was at Villa Park. Just trying to find it. It was our first bad defeat, actually, 3-0, and that was with the gegenpress before we did go attacking in December, so a poor result there. Hopefully we can do a lot better here at home park, but they've been one of the better teams in the division this season, albeit if we go back a bit further and bring these friendlies into it, we did actually beat Aston Villa in the pre-season by 2-1. We'll just go back up. Apologies if it's a bit janky today. My mouse has stopped working, so I'm going to have to use the touchpad here on my laptop, which is not ideal. But as you can see, a 2-1 win over them at home park in pre-season. Hopefully we can do something similar today, albeit a couple of injuries we are dealing with, albeit neither of them are 2 first-team players. Luis Jr., of course, our cup goalkeeper until next season, where he will take over. But unfortunately, we played a friendly in an international break before coming back for this game, and he injured his hand. He broke it just like Mike Cooper. I think he actually did it trying to save a shot, though, instead of celebrating a goal, because Ben Waine was on international duty, so it wouldn't have been for a Waine Train goal, but still, broken hand He's out for a little while, so probably is going to be saved up for next season, Will Lewis Jr., but thankfully still got lots of goalkeepers now at the club who can be the backup to Mike Cooper, and also Nestori Irankunda with a bruised ankle is out for a couple of days. That's a little bit frustrating because, as you'll see shortly, our backup left winger in Tony Springett has just come back from an injury himself and isn't quite on a full green heart. So hopefully we won't have to make a substitution in that area if Callum Wright does underperform, but there you can see Tony Springett not quite on that full green heart. Also, we've just changed a couple of roles since we had them in yesterday's episode. It's still quite similar to what we were using with the Gegenpress, but Mike Cooper these days is just a goalkeeper on defend. Hopefully that does mean we might ship a few less goals. That's what I'm hoping for anyway, but we'll see how we get on here. And if we don't pick up any points against Aston Villa at home, might be time for us to potentially go to yet another tactic and try and sort that out before we do get stuck in to the next season of this save, because going to the start of a season without a locked-in first-choice tactic is probably not a great idea to try and build some form up and try and get away from the relegation zone, because no doubt yet again that's where they'll predict us to finish here at Plymouth Argyle, but still going with that 4-2-3-1. That's what our squad's been built around for this entire save so far. Don't want to change from that tactical shape, but we might just need to try and change the style and maybe a couple of player roles to try and get us back on track that form that we did have back in December, where we were picking up wins in most of our games up until the goalkeeping injury situation. Still not too sure how I feel about that. Mike Cooper with that celebration on the Waine Train goal. It was really funny at the time, but then Connor Hazard got injured our next game and it wasn't quite so funny. But on the attack here, nice and early, Morgan Whittaker finds Kesler-Hayden in a bit of space, makes his way inside the box, and it's a brilliant start. Kane Kesler-Hayden with his third of the season. Morgan Whittaker gets the assist at right-hand side, linking up just like it did many a time in the championship for us last season. And only 1 minute in, we take a 1-0 lead here at home park, and hopefully this might be what kicks us into gear here at Plymouth Argyle for the run home. We can pick up some big points here against teams who might just drop outside of those European qualifying spots ahead of us. That could make things very interesting going into the last episode of the season, which will be coming up tomorrow. We might show you guys a game where we take on Man United. But off the back of that, a corner down the other end. It's flicked on there from Ollie Watkins, and Serhal Galasai will bundle that one home. I'm hopeful he was offside, but I don't think it was the case. And unfortunately, the Villa players are celebrating. That's because the goal has been awarded. And very shortly off the back of taking a lead, we get pegged back. Galasai just reverses away there from Mike Cooper, and a couple of defenders there, including Kesler-Hayden, who just scored the goal, don't quite deal with the danger, and they grab one back here to Aston Villa. But up until then, it was actually a pretty good start for us. Still look like a team who does struggle to get going quickly in our games here at Plymouth Argyle. Doesn't seem to matter what tactic that we do go for, at least in terms of the style. It does take us a little while to warm into games. Also still going attacking. Maybe that's something I should change if we do start to struggle even more. That might be something that's holding us back a little bit. We did go attacking back before December, and we did hit that good run of form. Maybe that's starting to hold us back a little bit. Should start to be a bit more circumspect in terms of our confidence. And now a chance there for Patrick Berg, and Aston Villa come from behind inside the first half and make it 2-1. Mike Cooper there, I thought, would do a bit better with that attempted save, but unfortunately it gets firm and finds that bottom right corner. And we have to now try and come back in this one. Patrick Berg left alone inside the box. Wasn't the most powerful strike, but Mike Cooper unfortunately couldn't keep it out, and they make it 2-1 early. And despite the fact they've only had 3 shots the same as us, they've had 1 extra on goal, and 2 of them have beaten our goalkeeper. So we're still looking a bit shaky defensively here with the vertical tiki-taka, and Kane Kesler-Hayden is down to a red halfback of picking up a knock, and it's not improving that quickly. So we'll take him off early for Ethan Laird. That's not ideal. Our goal scorer going off before half-time. Hopefully nothing else happens here before we do get into the interval in terms of Aston Villa. But we are starting to get on the front foot in terms of most stats, but our XG isn't that high, which is a bit concerning. That's one thing I'm noticing as well, since we did switch from the Gegenpress, just going to a slightly higher tempo instead of an out-and-out high one. The XG not nearly as good as it was when we were using that Gegenpress, but unfortunately off the back of a very early goal, we are down 2-1 here at halftime. Now we're going to make a lot of subs here. Jacob Graves is struggling. Halsner can come on for him, and Ethan Laird can go to left back. Also, Facundo Farias on a 6.4. Nikola Iliev can come on for him. We might try and leave the Waine Train out there to just see if he can pick up his form in this one. No goals off the back of yesterday's episode. Hopefully that will change, but we'll tell the guys they're not playing that badly because stats-wise, it's quite an even game apart from the fact XG-wise, they are beating us quite comprehensively. But to be fair, that first goal that they did score was from close range. That XG might have been quite high compared to the goal that we scored from a tight angle through Kane Kesler-Hayden, but unfortunately, we are down 2-1 as we get the second half underway here at home park. If we lose this, back-to-back home defeats, that would not be good enough, and a good chance there through Digne from a free kick, but thankfully Mike Cooper does get a touch on that to put it out for a corner. Now Patrick Berg puts that one into the mix, but thankfully we clear that one away through the Waine Train. It is still just 2-1 to Aston Villa, so we certainly could find a way back into this game, but unfortunately now up to the hour mark and the Waine Train is down to a 6.3, and also Callum Wright on a 6.4. So Tony Springett and Good Johnson can come on for those two. There'll be all our subs used here with a half hour left, and also might be time for us to chuck Ethan Laird onto support to try and get on the front foot a little bit more like we used to do with that gegenpress system, just go a bit more attacking with those roles as the game does go on if we are searching for a goal. Now Ethan Laird has picked up an orange injury, so this isn't going too well for us here in this game. A couple of injuries off the back of a good start in Aston Villa are a goal in front here, now just under 20 minutes left. Good work there from Iliev briefly to get that ball for us, but unfortunately Aston Villa do somehow keep hold of it. Now Digne is on the ball, looks like he's picked up a yellow card, gets it back. Good tackle from Good Johnson, and we do get the ball here briefly and might get a chance to do something on the counter-attack. Springett, nice ball out there to Helsner down that right-hand side, tries to return the favour, but unfortunately he's been swamped there. Here's our player in the middle, and it's a chance now for Aston Villa to do something on the counter-attack, albeit they play that one all the way back to Martinez in goal, but unfortunately poor pass that time from Sebastian Helsner, and now Aston Villa start to get in behind here through Ramsey. He sizes things up here with Helsner. Now they play the ball inside the box. Diaby puts that one into the mixer. It takes a wicked deflection. Somehow Gibson doesn't win the header to that ball, and Ollie Watkins will pick up a goal to go alongside his assist from earlier for that first goal to Garasay. That makes it 3-1, and we might need to change our tactic going into the second game of today's episode. Not sure how Gibson hasn't got that ball. That looks very dodgy indeed, but unfortunately the FM gods not on our side today, it looks like, and off the back of that we'll chuck those players onto attack that we usually do. Our wing back at left back, and also our right winger in Morgan Whittaker. Also will chuck Adam Randall onto support as the ball wing midfielder, and also we might just try and play with a really high tempo for the latter stages of this game to see if that will do anything. But unfortunately, despite the fact that most stats in this game are pretty even, apart from the fact our shots on target are a lot lower, and because of that, so is the XG. But Aston Villa giving us a bit of a thumping here at the moment into 5 minutes of added time. We did just cut out a highlight there before by giving some encouragement, but it was down the wrong end of the field. It was probably in favour of Aston Villa, but unfortunately the struggles here at Plymouth Argyle in the new year, they do continue. It's a 3-1 defeat at home park, which is pretty disappointing. That Tottenham game that we did lose before this one, our last home loss, that felt a little bit unlucky that time. Aston Villa with a 2-goal advantage. Not too sure if we can claim that we were unlucky that time. Our second home loss in a row. The fans there saying they want us to get rid of the 4-2-3-1. So I'm kind of expecting now another email like we got off the back of that Brentford game where we did change from the gegenpress to a vertical tiki-taka, but it doesn't look like that is the case. So for now, we'll stick with that shape, but might just need to change our tactical style. We'll come back shortly and probably do that before we take on Newcastle in what is definitely now a must-win game if we want to try and make Europe for next season. So not the ideal start to today's episode. Of 3-1 loss there at home to Aston Villa, and off the back of that before we take on Newcastle, who are in 6th while we are down in 10th. So this definitely is a must-win game for us if we are to close the gap on those teams in a European qualifying spot to try and get our way into that for our second season up in the Premier League. But before then, we have changed our tactic off the back of that poor result there against Aston Villa, and we have gone to a wing play system. It does kind of fit what the board want for us in terms of it being high tempo. Not too sure about the pressing, because they do want high tempo pressing football off the back of what we've done here so far with the Gegenpress, especially winning the championship with it. So it's a little bit different to that, which could potentially get us in trouble. But to be fair, most roles are the same as they were in that Gegenpress. The only changes are in that attacking midfield. All of those players are now onto support, and also Callum Wright, instead of being a winger or an inside forward, he will play as an advanced playmaker. That could be quite interesting because his form of late hasn't been too great. The Waine Train is still a pressing forward. That's really the best role for him, as I discovered when we had him at St Mirren on stream on FM23. But apart from that, it's pretty similar to what we were just using. It's a couple of different instructions with a wing play style instead of a vertical tiki-taka, and hopefully this might just work in the second game of today's episode. Otherwise, that's going to be annoying. And also, Man United, speaking of annoying, they pick up a win over Bournemouth. It does look like Bournemouth are the most likely to join Ipswich Town and Sheffield United in the Championship for next season. Crystal Palace, the other team who could get pegged back, albeit now they don't have Graham Potter in charge, their chances of staying up might just be a little bit better, but hopefully we can bounce back here in the second game of today's episode. We are going to stick with an attacking mindset just because it's been working for us so far. I don't think we'll go all the way back to balance, but actually I say we'll stick with attacking. Maybe we go back to positive. That might be something that we should have been doing a little while ago with our poor run of form. But apart from that little change, it's the same team that we put out for the first game in today's episode, and the bench is also the same, but this time Tony Springett is on a brighter green hat, so hopefully we can pick up a half decent result here, show a bit of improvement with a wing play system. Otherwise, going to be a very interesting end to the season here, because I don't think we'd be making Europe if we lose this game, and we'd have to try and find something that works before we get into the start of next season. Otherwise, that could be a bit messy to get things going, could be dropping points while we try and figure things out here at Plymouth Argyle. But thankfully, that team talk seems to have worked so far. I haven't done a team meeting for a little while because, to be fair, our club atmosphere is actually pretty good. So hopefully we can save that up when we find a tactical style that starts to work and we start to drop points that way. But at the moment, just feels like we're trying to figure out what we're doing here at Plymouth Argyle. But this is going to be tough against a Newcastle United team who, to be fair, are mixing their form just a little bit. Also, I think going into next season, we will probably go back to the Gegenpress if we don't sort things out by the end of this season, but maybe try and improve our general options in those roles we were using for that tactic, because it's definitely been the tactic that's worked for us so far in this save. But obviously that poor run of form since we've come into the year 2025 in game is kind of worrying. That's why we changed it, got that dreaded email article in the inbox. But early stages of this game so far, not up too much. Now, to be fair, with a wing play system, not expecting us to have too much of the ball, but thankfully we do get the first shot off, albeit nothing coming from it. And coming up to the 20-minute mark so far, this game has been a bit of a double. Encourage the guys and see if that gets anything going. It does, but it's Newcastle getting a shot off. But so far this game not up to much, albeit the Waine Train is on a 7, which is his best rating in a little while. But so far this game not up to too much. We'll encourage it again and see if we can get a highlight in the first half of this game. Otherwise, not ideal for content creation FM. So if you can do something here, that would be nice. Newcastle, though, starting to get on top of us late in that first half, but that was a bit of an average first half, fair to say. We got one shot off early, and off the back of that, not a lot happened. Newcastle did work their way into that half, but it's still 0-0 going into the second. Maybe we should just go back to attacking for a little bit just to see if that will work for the second half, because so far we haven't offered too much up in terms of our attack. But to be fair, everyone out there is on an okay enough rating. Don't think we need to change anything in that regard going into the second half. But something that we might try and change as well as going on to attacking is playing with an even higher tempo, and maybe just changing that passing directness to standard, kind of match what we were doing back with our Gegenpress when we were in form. So we'll change a couple of things there going into the second half. We'll tell the guys that we need to actually have some possession, and hopefully that will work. Also try here and get Callum Wright to not be quite so worried. Thankfully that works there, giving the midfielders a bit of a pump up there at half time. So a couple of changes for the second half, albeit it's a corner to get things underway. Ruggieri takes that one short. Rodriguez back out to Ruggieri. Hopefully we can hold on here. But so far Newcastle keeping the ball well. He cuts inside. He beats Mike Cooper. And Matteo Ruggieri, of course, with his first goal this season. and nothing's working for us here in the new year at Plymouth Argyle, and I don't really know what to do. So far I've been using the tactics that our assistant manager does recommend, albeit wing play was not one of them, but also trying to balance the fact that we are trying to play high tempo football. But at the moment, can't find anything that works nearly as well as that gegenpress was up until we did hit that Fulham game where the goalkeeping injury started. That does feel like that was a rather big turning point for us here at Plymouth Argyle this season. And coming up to the hour mark, I think it's fair to say wing play isn't working. What we might do here is go back to our gegenpress, but go on to positive instead of attacking, and hopefully that will do the trick. Not too sure if it will, but at the moment we're not playing well enough, and also quite a few players out there struggling. Kesler Hayden on a 6.3, Ethan Laird can come on for him, and also John Buckley on a 6.4, Tom Bishop, who actually finished second on the next gen this year. Didn't cover that off because we didn't have too many players on it, but Tom Bishop was second and Nesteri was about 41st, so a couple of our players were on the next gen list this season, which was cool. But I thought we'd cover off the youth intake instead because that was quite a good one. Also, Morgan Whittaker struggling. Ian Pavada can come on for him, and we'll see if that gets us going a bit better here in the second half. I'm hopeful that's the case, but we'll see. The gegenpress haven't touched it for a little while. Might just be the case now that giving it a bit of a break might just get it back into gear, and also going positive instead of attacking. Now Randall with a long range effort, and to be fair, that one wasn't far away at all, but unfortunately Nick Pope can just watch that one go over the bar. And now a chance for us here to put pressure on Newcastle as they try and play out of the back, but unfortunately it kind of doesn't work, and Ruggieri, the goal scorer, gets back in position. Interesting to see he's out on their left hand side despite the fact he scored the goal from there. Right now Correa, he cuts inside, absolutely does our man there at left back, and Jacob Graves, I believe that was. I'll try and click on him, albeit with no mouse. This might be a bit tricky. It is Jacob Graves. He might have to come off as well, but unfortunately switching to the gegenpress also not working, and we now go 2-0 down, albeit that one bit of individual brilliance from Correa and also some poor defence down our left hand side, which is interesting because Graves is playing on a defensive duty. So not really too sure here what's going on at Plymouth Argyle. Maybe just need to restart my computer off the back of this one, but unfortunately I think this result is going to mean there'll be no European football for us here next season at Plymouth Argyle. But I think it's now time for us to go on to attack with some of these player roles, and also we might go attacking with our mentality as well, just to see if that gets us going a little bit better. And we might even just play with a slightly lower tempo instead of the full-on high one. That might just mean we get a few more chances and better ones. To be fair, we're doing a lot more in the second half than we did in the first half, but still nothing that's really working. And a couple of players now are down to red hearts, including Callum Wright on the left wing on a 6.5. So for our last sub, I think we'll bring on Tony Springett in his place. Also, we'll chuck Adam Randall onto support, but unfortunately just nothing really working for us at the moment here at Plymouth Argyle. It's a really rough end of the season. Thankfully, did have a good first half to it. Otherwise, we could be closer to that relegation zone than would be ideal. But thankfully, we're safe in the Premier League already, and we are going to be here for next season. But hopefully before then, we can find a tactic to get us back on track. But now a chance here for Bischoff from a set piece. We take it short. These can sometimes work nicely. The ball goes back to Bischoff here, the second place getter in the next gen. Tony Springett does get in behind. Massive chance. Nick Pope goes the wrong way, but unfortunately Springett misses the target, and that doesn't help when you get big chances like that, which is obviously a huge XG chance as well. Our XG going up to 1.2, and we don't put the ball on target. We are playing a lot better though with the gegenpress, but unfortunately it's another defeat. 2-0 at Newcastle, and we just can't quite get out of this hole at the moment here at Plymouth Argyle. The vertical tiki-taka just didn't feel like it was working as well as I was hoping it would. The gegenpress there, we certainly played better once we switched to it, as you can see with that XG, so maybe we do need to try and go back to that, but maybe not quite as gung-ho as we were the last time we used it. But still, that's a disappointing result, and does mean now I think our chances of European football for next season in the save are pretty much dead and buried. Unfortunately, as I said before this episode started, maybe the train has left the station, but certainly that second half, a big improvement on the first, but only one shot on target. Newcastle, they got 3 on target. 2 of those bet Mike Cooper in goal, so maybe we need Louise Jr. back sooner rather than later because his form of late hasn't been too great, but hopefully we can just get ourselves into a decent patch of form before the end of the season. I think we might have to try and do that by going back to the Gegenpress. Now, unfortunately, too, both those goals did come down our left-hand side, which is a bit concerning, but now in real danger of finishing towards 14th place instead of in the top half of the Premier League table. We suffer 2 defeats in today's episode, capped off with a 2-0 win there at St James's Park. So a poor episode for us today on the Waine Train. 2 losses, which does mean I think our hopes of European football for next season are pretty much dead and buried, and because of that, I think we'll just come back tomorrow and play our last couple of games in the season and try and figure out what works for us best here at Plymouth Argyle. It's now about a 14-point gap to Newcastle, and even then, Man United already have that Conference League spot 10 points clear of us, only 4 games left in the season. We'd need a bit of a miracle to catch those guys up and also to try and overtake the likes of Brentford and Tottenham while we are at it. Thankfully, our goal differential still not that bad compared to the teams who are below that top 8, but unfortunately, looks like that second half of the season is going to come back and prove costly. And in between now and then, I think I'm going to stick with the Gegenpress for the rest of the season. We might try a 4-3-3 instead of the 4-2-3-1. It's a little bit funny because it does mean that the likes of Facundo Farias and Nikola Iliev are a little bit left out because of that, which is a bit concerning because there are a couple of our better players in the squad here at Plymouth Argyle, but we'll see how we get on with this style instead for our next game against Ipswich Town. You'd like to think that's a very winnable one against the team who are already relegated, but off the back of that, then we take on Manchester United. It could be interesting to see how a 4-3-3 does get on in that game, if it does the job against Ipswich Town. If it doesn't, that's not good signs. So we might need to change things yet again here at Plymouth Argyle. But hopefully we can sort something out before the end of the season to go into the start of the 3rd season of the Save Tactic-wise. But if you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. As I said, we'll come back tomorrow and finish off the 2nd season of the Save, our first one in the Premier League. Thankfully, we'll still be in that no matter what happens, but I think we'll come back. We might play that Manchester United game and also the Everton ones, both our home games, and amongst our last 4, we will also take on, as I said, Ipswich Town. Surely that'll be our first win since the Brighton game, and also Leeds United away. That could be interesting in terms of our overall finishing position. But we'll come back tomorrow, play Man United and Everton on camera, and also get through the end of season review and hopefully be a bit clearer on what our shape and tactical style is going into the transfer window. We'll also see, of course, what our budget will be. Hopefully it'll be a decent one, especially if we do change our shape, because then we'll need some money to change our squad around in the transfer window. But until tomorrow for the end of our 2nd season of the Save, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.